Welcome to WinCraps Basics Part 4, Bets, Rolls, and Results. In Basics Parts 2 and 3, we discussed how to navigate the table, how to enter players, and manipulate checks. So now let's play some craps. Let's start by setting up the table. Maybe we want to set up a table to match a certain casino, or maybe we just have some other criteria we'd like to practice with or play with. So let's go up to the game menu, and the first thing we're going to do is select New. If there's a game being played, and it'll ask if you want to save it. At this point, I'll say no. And up pops a little screen which asks whether we want to preserve certain data. Now, let's differentiate what's the difference between preserve and save. In WinCraps, when you save something, it actually gets saved to your hard drive on your computer. So you could turn your computer off, come back later, open it back up. You've got it. When you preserve something, you're not saving it to your computer. You're just carrying it forward to the next session. So it may be data you already have saved and you're going to carry it forward, or maybe it was data that was in use but it wasn't saved. But nevertheless, you're carrying it forward to the next session. So let's start with a blank slate. So in that case, we want to uncheck all these boxes. We don't want to carry forward any data. We just want to start with a clean slate. So we'll say OK. The next thing is we want to set up our table to match our casino. So we're going to say Game, Configure. And let's go through these tabs here real quickly. Most casinos have standard check sizes of $1, $5, $25, $100, and $500. You can change that if you like. You can set different colors. Comps, find out what your casino charges for comps, and you can kind of try to approximate that here. You can read more about it, and we'll talk about it later. Sound, I'll turn that off for now. On the Miscellaneous tab, if you're a new craps player or maybe just new to WinCraps, I would suggest to turn all these notices on. So check these boxes here. So it will let you know when actions are not allowed, when betting limits are reached, charges enter change. We're not going to use auto betting for the moment, so it doesn't matter what you select for these last two. And then later on, when you pretty much know the game, you don't need these boxes to remind you about things. You can come back in and turn these off. Info tips. Whenever the mouse pointer is over a bet, it'll display certain data about that bet, and you can customize here how much data it's going to show. So for the moment, we're going to select Show All Info. Font size, you can select that. Random number generator. There are many uses for a random number generator, but when you're starting out, I would suggest just to select RNG number 1 to seed normally and to uncheck this box if it's checked for reseed new sessions. RNG number 1 is a random number generator that's so large, it contains so many numbers, you couldn't exhaust it in your lifetime. So there's no need to be reseeding or doing anything with it. You can just leave it here, and you could use that for all your WinCraps play if you want. Bankroll, once we've entered some players, if you want to adjust some bankroll, you can come back in here and do that. Bets, here's where we're going to set up the minimums and maximums and a few other issues to try to match whatever casino we want to play in. So right now I've set it up for a $5 minimum table, $1,000 max. Min prop bet is $1. Max prop bet payoff is $3,000. Max odds bet is $3,000. Now the odds multiplier I've set for 3, 4, 5. That's a fairly standard odds allowed factor. You can change that as you please, all the way up 9999x. I challenge you to find one that goes that high, but nevertheless you could do it here if you wanted to just experiment with something. Odds calculation method, just leave that on auto select for now. Working on the come out roll. Okay, each casino has a policy as to which bets they're going to allow to work or not work on the come out roll. And that's their standard, so you can come in here and change what is going to be the casino standard. For example, many places have the hard way bets work on the come out roll. So you can come in here and see that hard 4, hard 6, hard 8, and hard 10 are all set to yes, means yes, they will work on the come out roll. If you wanted to change that, you can select these bets and click the no, and that will change. So now they will not work on the come out roll. You can double click also, that will change items. So if you changed a bunch of bets and you couldn't remember exactly what they were to begin with, you can select them all and hit default, and it'll go back to their original WinCraps settings. Vigorish. Lay bets and buy bets, there's a commission charged for those. The standard commission is 5%. You can change that if you happen to be playing at some place that charges differently. You can choose how they're rounded and whether to charge all lay and buy bets or just the winning lay and buy bets. For instance, here I'll set this up to charge only winning bets. Line bet required to shoot. If you're going to play in a casino and you're the shooter, of course they're going to require a line bet. If you're just playing by yourself on WinCraps and maybe you want to experiment with something, you don't want to worry about making line bets, you could turn that off if you like. I would set allow put bets for now. On the payoffs, I would pretty much leave the standard payoffs here. Now, maybe you're playing in some casino, for instance, in Australia, if you're down there. They pay off differently on the hard ways and certain prop bets. You can come in and change those. Let's say that we're playing on a table where the field has a triple payoff on the 12, so we'll change that. Just enter a 3 there. All small, tall, sometimes those bets pay differently. Right now, the default for WinCraps for like an all small bet is 34-1. I recently played in an establishment where they were paying 30-1, so you could just come in and change that. Probability, some very interesting things you can do with this, but for now, and when you're just starting out, I would not use this and just make sure that it's inactive. Advantage is just showing the expected value and some other data, and it's a product of the payoffs and the probability. For instance, if you wanted to look at the pass line bet, you could say that on average, the expected value per decision on the pass line is minus 1.41%. Okay, so now we've set all that up and come back to the table. We could just start playing if we wanted, but let's set up one more thing. Let's say that we're going to be playing by hand and we want to save what happens on each and every roll. We want to be able to look back through it and kind of analyze our play. So let's open the statistics menu and go to the events log. And here you'll see a screen. Now what's going to happen here, if we activate this, it's going to record what happens on each and every roll. And there's certain data that it can collect, and you can go up here to the options menu, select events to record, and you can decide which of these things you want to have recorded. If there's a checkbox next to it, it will record those events. And you can choose what you want. So now I'm going to activate that, and we could leave it open if we wanted, but I'll just close it. We can reopen it later. Now, we've got everything set up, and we could just enter a player, make some bets, and start playing. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would suggest to you that if you're going to play on a table like this fairly often, you might want to save this as it's a game file, but you could consider it like a template. You've now got a $5 table with certain payoffs and limits that we've set, and you could just save that as a template and then reopen that game later if you want to get back to the beginning template. So let me show you, for example. If I come up here to game and I say save as, and let's just give it a name. I already saved this once, so I'll just redo it. I gave it a name of basic, and I'll say okay. I want to override it. So now we look up here, it says WinCraps basic. This is the basic file that I started, but I want to use it as a template. So as a template, when you open it, it will set all the WinCraps settings to match the template. But we don't want to overwrite the template. We want to leave it in a pristine state. So once it's matched, the settings have been set, now we're going to go up and say game new. And we're going to say, well, we don't want to preserve any of this data. We're going to start with a clean slate, say okay. Now you look up here, it doesn't say WinCraps basic anymore, it just says WinCraps. So what in essence has happened is I used the template to open up to set all WinCraps settings, and then I said game new, so I am not accessing the template now. It's just a fresh game. So later, when I decide to save the game, I can give it a different name, and the data will be saved, but it will not overwrite that template. Then I can go back to that template if I want at any time. Now that kind of allows you to set up numerous templates. So you could set up, for instance, a $5 table, a $15 table, a $25 table. You could put different odds in there. You could have different prop bets, you could different colors. Maybe you want to have a template that has a couple of standard players on it. Maybe you want to have a template that has a full table. So whatever you want, you can do that, and I think that might make it a little bit easier for you. So let's start now. We've opened a template, and we're going to add a player and start making some bets. So let's go down here to position 1 left. That's stick 1 left. We'll click on the rail, And let's enter a player here. Let's just call him Joe. And we're going to give Joe $1,000. And now this little screen you might see on occasion. And what this is saying is that it says Joe has an older sessions log. Well, obviously at some previous time I was using a player named Joe and there was a sessions log. So the computer is asking, well, hey, is this the same Joe? You want to use this sessions log? If not, then you just say no, and it will not use that. It will start a new sessions log for this Joe. So let's make some bets now. How about click on the $5 check, and I'm going to go up to the pass line and I'll make a $5 pass line bet. Now notice this box here. This is the info tips box that we talked about. And whenever I'm over a bet, it's going to display this information. So it's showing the pass line, $5. The pass line is working, and it pays 1-to-1. If I click again, it goes up to $10. And again, it goes to 15. Hold down the control key and left click. Goes down to 10, back down to 5. Then the next one would remove the bet. Let's say we look up here at the place bets. It shows here's a place 8. It's not working right now because the puck is off. And it pays 7-to-6. Over here is a hard 10. It's working. It pays 7-to-1. So you can see as a new player that would be useful, kind of informative, help you navigate around. But after a while, maybe that's going to become a bit of a nuisance. It's kind of a big bit of information there, and maybe it gets in the way. So you just go back to the game, configure, go to the miscellaneous tab, and let's change this. Instead of showing all the information, let's just show the amounts only. Now what's going to happen when I'm over a bet, it's not showing all that stuff. Only on a bet that has an actual wager on it, it's going to show the amount. So for instance, here it shows our $5. Okay, so let's roll the dice. How are we going to do that? Well, you go up to the action menu. The very first item is roll the dice. You just click on that and it'll roll the dice. Or what might be easier for you is to use the F2 button on your keyboard. That will also roll the dice. Or what I find easiest is to use the right mouse button. That will also roll the dice. Now there's several other ways to roll the dice as well, such as the roll your own numbers pad. I'll show you that in a bit. But for right now, I'm just going to use the right mouse button. So click the right mouse button, and what happened, we rolled a 6. So our pass line bet is now established on the 6. Now we set this table up for 3, 4, 5 times odds. That means 5 times odds is allowed for the 6 or the 8. So we have a $5 bet. We're allowed 5 times odds. So we're allowed to take odds of $25 back here. So I've got $5 bet check selected, and I can just click 5 times. And there's my $25. Of course, I don't have to do that. I could just have clicked a $25 check and clicked it once. It does the same thing. Now, here's another little thing. Let's say I had another higher denomination selected. I can still click on this, and it's going to limit me. The game is going to say, hey, the limit is 25, and it'll bet that amount. So even though you click a larger amount on, it will limit it for you. So you don't have to go select a lower check. Okay, so now we have a pass line bet and a odds bet. Let's roll again and see what happens. We roll 4, 7 out. Okay, so we lost that bet. All right, let's make another bet. Come back again. Let's make a $10 bet this time. Roll the dice. We rolled a 5. Now how much is allowed for odds this time? Well, 3, 4, 5 times odds, so the 5 and the 9 allow 4 times odds. We have $10 here. 10 times 4 is 40, so we're allowed 40 in the back. So with a $5 check, we'd have to click 8 times. With a $25 check, we could click twice. What's going to happen? It's actually going to round it up to 30 for the first click, and then the second one, it's going to limit it to 40. So we could do that. We could also have clicked, say, a $100 check, click once. It'll say the limit is 40, and that'll be what we have. All right, let's roll again. There's a 12, 10, 2, 11, 9, 8, 9, 8, 10. Well, this is going to take a while, so I'll tell you what, to speed it up, I'm going to go up to the action menu. I'm going to select roll your own numbers. Up pops a little window, and right now it's set to the 11 basic dice totals. So if I would click on one of these numbers, it will roll the dice with that number. Now, some numbers obviously can be rolled multiple ways, like an 8. So if I clicked on 8, I might get a 4-4, I might get a 6-2, a 5-3. And if I just don't care which exact one is rolled, that's fine, you can use this. But if you want to roll exact combinations, what you do is right-click over this window, and let's select 36 combinations. I'll use the box. Now we can see all the dice combinations. And let's say I wanted to roll a 4-4. I can come in here and click on that. And there's my 8. Now let's say, let's roll our 5. So pass line bet is $10. It pays off 1-to-1, so it pays $10. Now, these boxes here, these buttons here that you can press, let's not get too hung up about these. These are just some standard responses that you can use to try to make it convenient. You are not tied into what these are. They're not permanent. Regardless of what I select on here, afterwards, if I change my mind, I can increase or decrease whatever bet I made. So this is just to help initially. Let's say that I thought, well, I want to double my bet. So I'm going to hit double. It's going to say the pass line will be increased by 10. And now it looks at the odds bet and says, well, you bet 40, it pays off at 3-2, so you win 60. That one you can't increase because it's going to be a new come out roll, and you're not allowed to have odds out there, so all you can do is take the bet. And now we can see, here's our $20 pass line bet. And then we can say, oh, I didn't mean to do that actually. I didn't mean to press double. I want to go back down to 10. So I could either just delete this whole bet and rebet at $10, or I could select, say for instance, the $5 check, hold down the control key, and click twice, and it'll go back down to $10. Remember that when you hold a control, it subtracts checks from a bet, and when you don't hold control and you click, it adds those checks to bets. All right, so let's say we're going to roll a 3 now. That was a craps. We lost the bet. Let's this time put $15 out there. Say this time we'll roll an 11. That's a winner. Okay, it'll keep the same bet. Let's say we roll a 7 this time. That's also a winner. And let's say now we want to go to custom amount. I want to bet, let's say $18, just for whatever reason. Let's bet 18. And there we go. There's our 18. Now again, you could say, oh, I didn't really want that. I'm going to delete that and let's go back to $10. So again, you're not tied into those responses. All right, let's roll an 8. We now have a point of 8. We're allowed 5 times odds now. And we have a $5 bet, so 5 times 5 is 25. So we can put $25 back here. Now let's say, for example, let me remove those odds. Let's say, well, we're betting odds every time. We want to take odds automatically. How about we go to the action menu, auto play, and let's choose player Joe, and let's click this first box here, auto take full odds. Now I don't have to worry about odds. It will automatically take them for me every time a point is established. So now you can see it took our $50 bet here, $10 flat, $50. So let's win an 8. The flat bet pays 1-to-1, same bet. The odds, 50 pays 60, that's 6-5, take that bet. Now let's establish, say, a 9. And bang, there's my odds that got taken automatically. $10 flat, $40 odds. So now we can see that that's working perfectly. Now that takes full odds. If you want to take less, that's fine. Again, you're not tied into it. Just because it took full odds doesn't mean you have to stay there. I could say click on the $5 check, hold down the control key, and let's say I want to click twice to reduce that down to $30. No problem, I can do that. If you want to select, have it play certain amounts automatically, but not the full amount, well, in an advanced session, you can learn how to do that with an AutoBet script. But for now, you either don't take odds or it will take full odds, depending upon whether you check that box or not. All right, so now let's say Joe decides he also wants to play some place bets. So you're going to put $5 on the 6 and the 8. But wait, the $5 went to $6. Well, that's because the auto adjust bet amounts feature on the autoplay screen down here on the right is set to auto. There's an auto minor correction and auto color correction. So when it's in auto, it will change any bet you make so that it allows for a full payoff. Well, $5 on a 7 to 6 payoff will not pay a full amount. In order to get a full payoff, you have to bump it up to $6. So that's what the feature did for you. If you try to add another 5 now, instead of going to 11, it bumps it up to 12. Because the 12 will pay evenly, it will pay at $14. Same thing, you just keep going up. Here's $30. 30 pays 35. So let's make our $6 bet, and let's roll a few numbers. Let's say we roll an 8, and a $6 bet pays 7 to 6, so we win 7. Say we want to press 1 unit. It goes up $6. Now we have a $12 8. Let's say we roll a 6. Same thing, $6 bet pays 7. Let's press that up $6. That goes up to 12. All right, let's roll a 6 again. Now our $12 bet pays 14. Still a 7 to 6 payoff. Let's say this time we want to go same bet. And now let's say misfortune strikes and we roll a 7, 7 out, we lost. Okay, now we're going to come back with another pass line bet. Let's go with just $5 this time. Let's say we roll a 10. Point is 10. Now let's roll our place bets on the 6 and 8. We'll roll an 8. Let's press that up. And let's say we re-roll our 10 now. Flat bet pays even money, 1 to 1. If I say press 1 unit now, you can see that 1 unit here is only $1, whereas 1 unit on the 6 and 8, 1 unit was $6. So the amount that 1 unit represents changes depending upon the bet you've got and the odds payoff. So if we wanted to double this bet now, we wouldn't say press 1 unit, we'd say press double. So now I'm going to have a $10 bet. The odds, $15 odds, pays 2 to 1, pays 30. Now you can see here's our $10 bet. So now, let's say we roll our 8. We establish a point of 8. What happens? Puck moves to 8. We now have our pass line bet. The odds came on, so we now have the 8 covered with the pass line. But wait a minute, we also have a place bet on the 8. So we've kind of got the 8 almost triple covered. We have a flat, odds, and a place bet. Now you can leave it that way if you want, but what's going to happen is the dealer's going to ask you what you want to do with this bet. If you really want it to stay there, just tell the dealer, leave it there. What most people do though is they take it down and they move it to another bet. For instance, you might put it to a place 5 or a place 9, or they take it down and they use that money to take odds. So let's say that that's what we want to do. That we don't want to have it double covered, we want it to come down. Well, we can just click delete and then bet it somewhere else or use it for the odds. And that's no problem. We can do that every time. But instead, let's use another feature to do it for us. Let's go back to the action menu, autoplay. We still have Joe selected. And down here, you'll see there's a checkbox that says auto down place bets. So if we click that, now, anytime you have a place bet, which becomes a point covered by either a pass line or a come bet, it will take that place bet down. So let's see, I clicked it, and there it is. It took it down. So just to show you that again, let's roll an 8. We'll say same bet. And now we'll roll a 6, and you'll watch now the 6 will come down because the pass line will become established on the 6. Okay, so there it came down. Now, if you want to, instead of just taking it down, you want to make a bet on maybe the place 8 or 5 or do something else with it, you can do that, but you're going to have to get a little bit more advanced. You're going to have to write an auto bet script that'll do that for you. And you'll get there. Believe me, you'll have fun doing that. Okay, so now let's see, we've got our 6 covered, but we want to cover place bets for 5, 8, and 9. And now let's say we roll some numbers. Maybe we hit a 9. Let's double that. Let's say we hit a 5. We'll go to the same bet on that. Let's roll an 8. And let's go right to 30. So I'm going to go $30 down here. I'll say bet. And I've got some bets looking pretty good. And in addition, I decided, or Joe's decided, he wants to bet the hard ways also. He's got the inside covered, but he wants to bet the outside. We want to put $1 on a hard 4 and a hard 10. But, you know, they might not hit right away. And if you happen to roll a point, what's going to happen? We know that the house is going to work the hard ways on the come out roll. Well, maybe Joe doesn't like that. Maybe he said, well, if I happen to make my point, I don't want to work the hard ways. I want them off on the come out roll. So you could either wait until a come out roll and just tell the dealers, put my bets off. But if he wants to do it every time, he can just tell the dealer, hey, I always want to be off on the come out roll. Now, how can we do that in WinCraps? We go to the action screen, autoplay, and up here on the right-hand side, you have working on the come out roll. Now remember, on the configuration screen, we also saw working on the come out roll. That's where we set the house standard. But now Joe, he wants to buck the house standard when it comes to these hardway bets. So we'll just scroll down to the hardways, and he wants to do all of them the same. So let's hard 4, and then we'll hold down the shift key and click hard 10. That selects all of them, and he can click no. Now Joe's bets and Joe's bets only will be, or his hardway bets will be off on the come out roll. Now another player could select something different. Now let's go ahead and roll a 6 and let's see what happens to those. All right, we'll make the same bet here. We'll take the odds. And now here you can see we're on a come out roll, and Joe's bets on the hardways have an off lammer sitting on top of them. Now the lammers, the off and on lammers, the dealer is only going to put those on bets where you are not in accordance with the house standard. The house standard is known, and the dealer is not going to put out on and off bets to match the house standard. That would be pretty burdensome. He's only going to put on or off lammers out on bets that are not in accordance with the house standard. So on a bet where the house says that they're normally on, but you want to be off, well, you get an off lammer. By the same token, let's say that now Joe, he likes the 8 and he wants to work that on a come out roll. He could just go up and click on and click on the 8, and that would put an on lammer. But it's only going to work one time until the bet resolves or is taken down. Let's say that he decides he wants to work that all the time, just as he wanted the 8s to be off the come out roll. So let's go back to the action menu, autoplay, and let's scroll to the place 8. Click on that, and we'll say this time, yes, we want that place 8 to work on the come out roll every time, not just once. So now you can see it's got an on lammer. Again, the house standard is to not work the come out roll. Since Joe is having it work the come out roll, it gets an on lammer placed on it. So if I roll an 8 now and set it as the point, the 8 here will win. And there it is, place 8, 1. And it doesn't matter what we're going to select here because we have auto down. So as soon as the puck moves to the 8, it's going to take it down regardless of what we say. So if I say press double, it says it's going to increase it, but as soon as the puck comes over, it removes it because that's what we told it to do. Okay, so let's see. Let's roll a couple more numbers here. Let's say we roll a 5, same bet, and then we 7 out again. Oh, rats. Let's make another bet. Maybe we roll a craps. Maybe we roll this time a 9. And now let's say Joe's decided, well, his place bets, I'm not really making tons of money. I'm going to switch to a couple of buy bets. I want to put buy bets on the 4 and the 10. Well, buy bet on the 4 and 10 really isn't worth on normal casino, on a standard casino, until you get to about 20 bucks. So let's just say he wants to bet 25. So what you do first is you click on the place bet. So now I have a place 10 and a place 4 for 25 each. And now I can either click the buy button and then click the bet, and now it'll tell me how much VIG is going to be charged. In this case, we told it to only charge winning bets. So it says, hey, if you win, the VIG is going to be $1. Okay, and it puts a buy lammer on top of it. So that's one way to do it. Another way, we could just go up to the action menu. We can click on buy the place bet, and it'll say click on the bet to buy. Now, if I click on buy on the 4, the place 4, it will change it into a buy bet. And the final way, of course, is to use what's displayed here, the F5 key on your keyboard. And the same thing, it will just say, click on the bet to buy it. So let's say we're going to buy that 4. And now the same thing applies to these, of course. We can have these work and not work on the come out roll. We can put on and off buttons on them, lammers on them. Or we can go, if we want it every time, we can go to the autoplay screen and we can use the working on come out to make it happen every time. So we don't have to keep repeating that. All right, so let's say we hit that. Let's say we hit a 10. Shows buy 10 was 25 bucks. It pays off at 2 to 1 because buy bets pay true odds. However, there was a 5% VIG, so it's going to be $1 subtracted, so the net payoff will be 49 bucks. Now, if I say to keep the bet up, increase it or whatever, it's going to charge VIG again. So I'll say same bet, and now it says again the VIG is going to be $1. Let's say this time we roll a 4. Same thing, 25 pays 50 minus 1, $49 payoff. Let's say this one I want to double. It's going to double the 25 to 50, and then it's going to charge VIG according to 50. So now it says if you win, the VIG will be $2. Now, if you take a buy bet down, of course, the VIG will be returned. So let's say we 7 out now, and now we decided, hey, things are looking pretty good. We've won some money, but how has the session been going, really? We haven't kept too close a track of that. How about we take a look at some data to see what's been going on here? So we're going to go up to statistics, and the first thing we're going to look at is a summary. Now on the summary, we'll select a player, Joe. If there are multiple players, of course, you can check other players, or you can click 2 or more at the same time and look at their combined data. So right now, for the current session, the table has seen 44 rolls. Since Joe's the only player here and he's the one making all the rolls, he also shows 44 rolls. At 120 rolls per hour, that ends up being about 0.37 of an hour. And there were 4 total hands. The beginning bankroll was 1,000. The high bankroll was 1,345. The low was 970. Average was 1103. And the current is 1245. Now, it's doing some comp data here. We will cover that in some other video. And at the bottom shows a compilation of all the bets that Joe has made that have been resolved. So it shows the total number of bets, the total dollar amount of bets, for how much was wagered, how much was won, how much was lost. Then the net is the wins minus the losses. In this case, you can see we had more wins than losses. And the net percentage is the wins minus the losses divided by the wagers. And that right now, for the number of bets, is a positive 12.19%. Now, on the dollar amount, the total dollar amount bet was 707. There was $541 that was won and $296 was lost, for a net win of 245, a net percentage win of plus 34%. Well, that's pretty good, but that's can easily be expected with low numbers of rolls. The next thing we could look at, let's say we want to go to the bankroll screen, and on this screen we can see a little graph of the bankroll, what's been going on. We started here at 1,000, we went down, and now it's been up, down a little bit again, and then right back up. So we're doing pretty good. If we want to see exactly what some of these numbers are, then what we can do is select Options, Display Reference Lines. Up pops a couple of lines that you can move around. Right now these lines are showing how many rolls. On the horizontal scale here is how many rolls. The red is set to 175. If I'll left click on the screen anywhere, it will move that line. If I left click and hold, I can drag the line and put it wherever I want. So let's say I want to go right here, and it shows the corresponding bankroll for that roll. That was roll number 22, and the bankroll that corresponds to that was 1130. Now let's say I want to measure the difference from this low point, there we go, and I want to measure to this high point right here. Well, I could look here and I could say that's roll number 26 at 1084, and then I can go click on that one and note the difference and do the math myself. Or what I can do is click the right mouse button and I can drag this yellow line over, and now I'll put that at the top of that point that I want to measure. And now it will show the numbers for that. That's roll number 38, that's 1329, and this other piece of data here shows the difference. The difference between these two bankrolls is 245, and the difference between these two rolls, number 26 and 38, is 12 rolls. So that's just a way to be able to pick some more data, detailed data out of this graph. You don't have to use that if you don't want. A lot of good things that you can get out of here. All right, let's go up now. Let's say we want to just look and see what's been rolling. Now, if I do not select a player here, then what's going to be displayed is all the rolls that occurred on the table for the time period selected. So we have current session, so these are all the session rolls. There was 44 rolls. This is how it breaks out, and this is how it looks like in a graph. So it's somewhat symmetrical, not bad. If I click on a player now, it's going to show whatever roles that player had as a shooter. Now, since Joe's the only player here, when I click on Joe, nothing changes because he's the one who made all those roles. If I had other players, it would show the different amounts, or the different numbers. Now, you can size this up a little bit if you like. You can change whatever is being displayed here, whichever columns you want to look at. Next, let's say we want to really look at some detailed bet results. So click on the bet results. Now, up here on the left, I can select a player, Joe. I want to look at the current session, and I want to look at all bets. So let's double click this where it says 6 bets right now. I'm going to double click. Now it says all bets are selected, and it totals them all up, and I can see down here, these are resolved wagers. The total number, the total dollar amount, highs, lows, wins, losses, net percentage, a lot of good stuff. But now I want to get a little more detailed. So instead of looking at all, actually before I do that, note here that the total number and the total dollar amount, this is exactly what we saw on the summary screen. So if I'll select the summary screen again, you can see here, here's the total, 41,707, and here we have 41,707. So it's the same thing, but on this screen, we don't have to select them all. We can select just one. So if I want to look at, say, the place 6 bet, what has happened with that? It had a total of 3 wagers. 2 of them won, 1 lost. There was a total of $30 that was wagered, $21 was won, and $12 was lost for a net win of $9. That's a 30% win. The high, this shows the highest amount that was bet, $12. The highest amount that was won was 14. The highest amount lost was 12. The lowest amount bet was 6. The lowest amount won was 7, and the lowest amount lost was 12. Same thing with the average. Now last. Last doesn't necessarily refer to the last roll. It refers to the last resolution. These are resolved wagers. So it's the last time that this wager resolved, it had $12 on it. The last time it won $14. And the last time it lost $12. So the last wager and the last loss look like they occurred at the same time, and this win occurred some other time. Now you can see more detail about that when it says number of rolls since last. You can see here 18, 19. Now, if you do need to know what happened on the exact last roll, then you would look down here at the last roll number, last roll dollar. If nothing happened on the last roll, it will all show zeros. If it won on the last roll, then something else will show here. So let's take a look at that. If I come back here, let's say we put a bet on the 8. We'll put $6 on the 8, and let's just set a point of 5. I guess we got to have a line bet too. So we'll set a point of 6. Now I'm going to roll the 8, and this time we'll just say same bet. Let's go back now and look at the bet results. Now you can see if I select place 8, and I look at last roll number, now it shows that the last roll, it had 1 wager on it, that was $6, and it won, and it paid $7. Okay. If I roll something else, let's say I roll a 12 now, and now I look at the same data, again we're back to zeros because nothing happened on the last roll. Now this table also shows an expected value, so you can compare the net percentages and the net amount, compare that to the expected value and see how you're faring. There's also some net and net percentages for these other rows as well. Not terribly meaningful, so I wouldn't worry about them, but I put them there nevertheless, just in case maybe somebody wants to use them for whatever reason. Okay, how about now we can look at, let's say, the hand screen. Now, what does the hand screen show? This is going to show what's been happening on the come-out roll and what was the results. So I'm going to select player Joe, and now over here you look at the current session. There was a total of 5 hands, total of 47 rolls. There's just a few little trivia data up here. Most number of rolls in a hand, the average number, most come-outs, most passes, most misses, averages. So those are just kind of nice to know numbers. And then down here it's showing what did we have for all our come-out rolls. We had a total of 14 come-out rolls, and this shows how they were distributed. We rolled 2 craps 3s on the come-out roll. We rolled 1 5, we rolled 3 6s, we rolled 1 7, 3 8s, 2 9s, 1 10, and 1 11. So it breaks it down further here and says, well, out of those, 4 of them were naturals and 10 of them went to points. So now let's look at the passes. What happened for each come out roll? So this come out roll was a 3. That's an immediate resolution, and it's a miss. So it gets recorded over here as a miss. Let's say the 5, there was one come out on a 5, and that passed. So it gets recorded as a pass. Now if we total all these up, we can see that there were 7 passes. Of those 7, 2 of them were naturals. That just happens to be an 11 and a 7. And 5 of them were pass winners, point winners. About the misses. On the misses, there were 6 misses. 2 of them were on the come-out roll. They were come-out naturals, and that happens to be those craps 3s. 4 of them were 0.7 outs. So we can see those here. There was a 1 on the 6, 1 on the 8, and 2 on the 9. Now, instead of looking at the raw numbers, you could click this box right here and change it from number to percentage, and now it will show you the percentages. So out of all our 100% of come-out rolls, 50% of them passed, 42.86% of them missed. And you can see the breakdown all there. So you might find that useful. Last thing we can look at here that we were worried about was the events log. Let's look at that. Now, we can look at the top here. You know, you can scroll this through, but looking at the top, we started a new session, shows the date and time. A new hand, Joe was a player who joined the game. We put him at stick 1 left with $1,000, and he made a $5 pass line bet. The first roll was a 6. It was a 1-5. It came from RNG number 1. It established a point, and Joe bet $25 in pass line odds. Second roll was a 4. Third roll was a 7, and that was a miss. It was a 7 out. So Joe lost $5 in the pass line. He lost $25 on the pass line odds. He decreased his bankroll to $970. It was a $30 loss. So now a new shooter would be selected, but since he's the only player at the table, he stays the shooter. So same shooter, Joe's coming out again. This time he decided to bet $10. For roll number 4, he rolled a 5, and that was again from RNG number 1, point established, and he bet some pass line odds. So we can go through the whole list and see what's happening. There's all the numbers we rolled. Now, remember, we rolled a bunch of numbers and we decided to expedite it just for display purposes. And we started using the manual roll pad. So you can see here it transitioned from using RNG number 1 to using the manual roll pad. If you're using a dice roll file, you would learn about that later, and it would show here if your roll came from the dice roll file. So you think you might find that kind of useful if you're wondering what happened where. You can just scroll through here and pick out, okay, on this roll I had a 7 out, here's what happened, here's what I did. Now, if you're going to run a long simulation, as you will in later times, you might run a hyperdrive, you might roll for thousands of rolls or millions of rolls. If you have the events log turned on at that time, it's going to slow things down because there's a lot of data here that has to get recorded, and it's going to get recorded on your hard disk. That slows it down a little bit, and eventually it's going to make a pretty large file. Well, if you're running several million rolls, do you really want to look at what happened on each and every of those rolls? Probably not. So in that case, you might want to come in here and deactivate the events log. So that's not going to be a burden. All right, let's see. What else can we talk about here? Let's say that Joe says, well, that's it for this session. I won $252, feeling pretty good about it, and he wants to leave and maybe come back and play another day. So we could save the game if we wanted. We could save, and since we don't have a name up here right now, if I click save, it's going to say save as, and you'll have to give it a new name. I could also just click save as, or let's just say, no, he decides he wants to play another session now, and we're going to just simulate maybe moving to another table. So we won't continue this one. We'll say new, and now what's going to happen is it's going to say, dude, you want to save this one? Well, you can save it specifically, but you don't have to save it. And the data will still be there for you. I'll show you what will happen. So right now I'll say no. And now I didn't want to save it to the hard disk, but I want to preserve this data and carry it forward to the next session. And eventually, when I have a whole bunch of sessions saved up, then maybe I'll save all those combined in a saved game. So this time, since I want to accumulate data, I want to make sure this box is checked, preserve previous sessions data. And preserve sessions logs, those are very useful, so we want to preserve that. AutoBet script we're not using right now, check stacks we're not using, so you can just turn those off. And there you go. Now we have a new game. Joe's bankroll's been reset to 1,000, and we're all set to go. Now the other session data is still there. Remember, we preserved it. So if you were to go, say, at the statistics and look at the, say, bet results, if you come here and select last session, then there it is. There's all the data that we had from before. And you can select one bet or multiple bets. I mean, all the data is still there. We could do that. A lot of screens have the sessions available here. So we can select current session, last session, and we can still see all that data. Again, we could use events log too. Now this is from the previous session. We could reactivate that. And actually, if we had left it as active, it will re-record. It'll say on here, new session. I had turned it off, so let me just show you. I'll do this once more. I'll say new. Don't want to save that. I do want to preserve. I'll say OK. Now if I look at the events log, and I scroll down to the end, the last thing we've got on here is where we just started. New session started. Here's the date and time. Joe, once again, with $1,000, and he's coming out. So that's how that works. Here's another thing we could do. Let's say after Joe runs a bunch of sessions, first of all, he can then, when we run multiple sessions, he can go to the sessions log, and he can look at all these sessions will be accumulated here, and there's a lot of good data that he can look at here. It shows some histogram, and you can show some data for the statistics. But also, if he wants to now start a new session and he wants to wipe everything clean, he doesn't want to accumulate numbers of sessions. He wants to run a new simulation and have clean data. So what could he do? He could say game new, doesn't want to save. You could deselect all these buttons here and say okay, and that will clean everything out. Or how about we use that template? Let's say he wants to play another game, but he wants to use that template. We'll say open. Don't want to save. We're going to open up basic again. And now it has reset the table to everything we had before. Our player is gone as well. It goes right back to the original template that we had. And we want to get rid of this where it says basic because we're going to keep it as a template. So now we'll say new. And uncheck these boxes. And there we go. All fresh and ready to go. Okay, one other thing I want to mention here. If you should encounter some strange things that happen inside the game, chances are that the game's default save file has become corrupted. Now, when you exit WinCraps, it'll ask if you want to save your data, and you can save it. But whether you save it or not, it's also going to save whatever's in use. It's going to save it in a file called default.crp. It's a game file. It's just a default file, and the next time you run WinCraps, it's going to load that file. So if you forgot to save it, it kind of does it for you. It's kind of like a little backup. And after you open WinCraps, you could just continue with the default file, or you could go back and open up whatever saved game file you had. So it's got a lot of data to save. If during the shutdown it gets interrupted, it could possibly corrupt your data. And if that happens, then when you reopen WinCraps, some things might not work or some things might be kind of off. And if you see that, what you do is close WinCraps, open up your File Explorer, go to the WinCraps folder, and delete the file default.crp. Just delete it, no problem. You don't need to rename it or anything. Get rid of it. When you then restart WinCraps, everything will be back to normal, back to the original WinCraps settings. And when you exit again, a new default.crp will be saved for you. So deleting the default CRP is in effect a master reset, and all the game features will revert to their original WinCraps settings. Okay, well, I think I covered a lot for you. I hope that is helpful. Be sure to check out some of the other videos on other WinCraps features, and thanks for watching.